So in today's demo session, I would like to cover the basic introduction about Selenium, what are web elements, challenges identifying the web elements, and different approaches of identifying a web element. Okay, so let me start with that. So Villa, can you just unmute both of them? For an automation. Whenever there is a continuous regression of a particular module within a given application or a particular project, which is a maintenance project or a continuous implementation project, then we go for an automation. Then we implement automation scripts using any of the tools. So why should we choose Selenium? Why not QTP? Why not Sahi? Why not Sikuli? Why not all the tools available in the market? Why should only we go with Selenium? So then there it comes the importance of this particular tool compared to any other tool available in the market. So I'll just give a brief introduction about Selenium and jump into the implementation part, because the implementation part is more important than the theoretical what we speak in general. Okay. So the importance of Selenium, the first thing everyone has to talk about is it's an open source tool. This is the first important thing that made it so popular in the market. Second thing is it supports multi-browser and multi-language. So what is this multi-browser and multi-language? It supports Firefox, Internet Explorer, Chrome, Safari, Android, and iPhone automation. So these are the 6 different browsers. It supports. Along with this, multi-language. So Selenium supports C#, Java, Python, and PHP. So it supports 4 different languages. So any person who has a good knowledge on Java can go ahead with Java. The person who is working on .NET projects can go ahead with .NET, and a person who has knowledge on PHP can go ahead with PHP. So this is the first automation tool which has a multi-language support compared to any other language and any other automation tool that is presently available. So for example, if I want to go with Sikuli, it supports only Python and Java. If you want to go with QTP, you have only VB support. If you want to go with Sahi, you have only Java support. So these are all the restrictions that are provided on different automation tools. Whereas if you go with Selenium, you will not find such restrictions. At present, in Selenium 2.33, that if you are going with only WebDriver flavor, it supports 4 languages. But if it was Selenium RC, which is already deprecated, it supports around 6 languages. I'll speak about the flavors now. So any doubts till now? If you have any doubts, you can just unmute and go ahead with your queries. I have just asked you a question, like any doubts in the chat. If you have any questions, else please reply as no so that I can go forward. Okay, so I was talking about flavors, right? So Selenium comes up in 4 different flavors: Selenium IDE, Selenium RC, Selenium Webdriver, Selenium Grid. So these are the 4 different flavors available in Selenium. So the first one, Selenium IDE. Selenium IDE is a record and playback tool. It's a purely record and playback tool. The people who do not have any knowledge on automation and are very new to automation can just play around with this add-on that is available for Firefox and see how automation works, how the scripts are generated, how Java code is generated, how .NET code is generated, etc. So this Selenium IDE is only an add-on for Firefox. You cannot, this add-on is not available for Chrome or Firefox, pardon me, for IE or Safari. It is only an add-on for Firefox. Okay. So it supports all the languages that in general Selenium supports. So you can generate the scripts in any of your language that you want that Selenium supports. Okay. Along with this, it supports the frameworks like TestNG and JUnit as well. So then comes Selenium RC. Selenium RC was the first automation tool within Selenium that was implemented. Before Selenium IDE or Selenium Webdriver or Selenium Grid came into picture, this Selenium RC was implemented by Jason Huggins. It was implemented as part of a project that he was working for Google team, and to automate some of his web applications, he implemented a simple JavaScript framework. So the team within Google was very much impressed with this implementation, and they have come up to make it as an open source tool. So a team of ThoughtWorks, a open source team of ThoughtWorks has formed. So the team now, it is called as ThoughtWorks team. So they have come up and they have redesigned this Selenium RC framework so that they can use it on multiple languages and multiple browsers as well. Okay, so this way this Selenium project has become an open source project with a the organization name called ThoughtWorks. Okay, so there were some disadvantages with Selenium RC. What are the disadvantages? The disadvantages were that this API that was developed was not a purely object-oriented programming implementation. It was purely based on JavaScript, and it was not directly interacting with the browsers. Rather than it was interacting with the JavaScript, Java box implemented on every browser. So it was just trying to connect to the Java box within the browsers, and that particular was JavaScript within the browser was trying to perform the actions within the browsers. So this was a big issue. Why? The reason is every browser imitate, or every browser has its own implementation, and every browser acts according to the implementation. So as we were telling, it was supporting multi-browser. Yes, it was supporting. But as the new technologies or the new browsers were coming into picture, this implementation was becoming this browser invocation and all those things were becoming a little major issue, because every browser acts differently on every web application. If the developer will implement, for example, if you take IE8 doesn't support CSS, but at present CSS has become a very key important role. CSS5 or something, HTML5 has come into picture. So HTML5 has a very good support for Firefox or Chrome, but whereas if you go for IE, there may not be so huge support. So the browser, the application that is opened in IE may not be very good, and this particular RC may not support such latest applications like GWT or HTML5 based applications or Flex applications or any as such applications. So it was becoming a little challenge for the Selenium team. So at that time, they have come there was a separate API that was implemented by Simon Stewart called WebDriver. It was a separate API, and that time the Selenium team has come up with an agreement with Simon Stewart to integrate Selenium with WebDriver. So this Selenium WebDriver was added as part of Selenium in the mid-2008. Earlier it was a separate API. So in this way, Selenium WebDriver has come into picture with the integration of both. So why it was integrated? To overcome the disadvantages that Selenium had. Earlier, the Selenium WebDriver had only one language support, that was only Java. It did not support any other languages. After integrating with Selenium, it had a multi-language support, because when you are merging, they will make sure the API that was written in Selenium RC and the API written in Selenium WebDriver will have a common thing. So that way, the features that were available in Selenium RC was posted into Selenium Grid WebDriver as well. So Selenium WebDriver is a purely object-oriented implementation, and it was developed on some Java language. Along with this, it supports all the other 3 different languages, and it was not based on JavaScript. Functionality was not based on the Java box available in the browser. Rather than it was directly simulating the actions on the browsers, on the web applications opened on the browser. So it was having a direct, we can say that it was having a direct communication between the browser and the Selenium WebDriver. Okay, so any doubts over here? Shall I go ahead with the next topics? Okay, so
Yes, please.
let me go ahead with it. Yeah, so along with this, another new implementation that has come with Selenium WebDriver was HTML unit driver. So HTML unit driver is a browserless execution of test cases. If your application, you are doing functional testing and you are not much concerned about the browser invocation and all those things, you can go with HTML unit driver, where the scripts will be running internally. No browser will be invoked. All the scripts will be internally simulated, and it will take help of HTTP protocol, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So whatever the commands that we perform will be passed through HTTP protocol, and the scripts will be running internally without any browser. Okay. Along with this, as I was telling, that we were overcoming the disadvantages that Selenium RC had. So Selenium WebDriver API was defined in such a way, as I was telling, it was OOPS concept, object-oriented implementation. So every browser has a separate implementation. So if I am opening Internet Explorer, the commands that we have implemented in Selenium will act according to Internet Explorer. If I open Firefox browser, it will act according to Firefox browser. If I am opening Chrome browser, the commands, the functionality that we have implemented, or the scripts that we have implemented will work according to Chrome browser. So the first thing it will look is which browser we are invoking, and the scripts are common. We don't require to change anything, except we need to say that now I am invoking Internet Explorer, or now I am invoking Firefox, or now I am invoking Chrome. Only one line you need to change, and the scripts will be common. So according to the browser invocation, the scripts will be running. So this is the biggest advantage that we can say where over Selenium RC. Where Selenium RC we were telling the browser, but it was not object-oriented programming. It was not implemented on that, and it was trying to simulate. It was just invoking the browser, but the simulation was, everything was based on RC, not on the browser. Okay. So now the next flavor, Selenium Grid. What is this Selenium Grid? Selenium Grid is one of the powerful thing I can say compared to any other automation tool available in the market. The first and foremost thing is to talk about remote invocation. What is this remote invocation? So before I go with that, another thing is Selenium is not operating system dependent. It is operating system independent. The scripts that are generated on Windows, you can use the same scripts on Linux as well. So you don't have any as such that I have to do that in this and all those things. So in Selenium Grid, the first thing that we need to talk is, I have scripts on my local computer and I want to run those scripts on a Amazon cloud environment. So there is no relationship between the cloud and my local computer. My local computer is somewhere in India and my cloud based is somewhere in here. How would I invoke those scripts? How would I run the scripts on the Firefox that is installed in the Amazon environment? Selenium Grid supports that. How? So Selenium Grid, if you run the Selenium Grid on the remote machine and on the local machine and try to invoke the browser, try to run the scripts from local machine, automatically the scripts will be running in your Amazon environment. Else, if you have your scripts in your Linux operating system and want to run your scripts in a Windows environment, yes, you can do. The only thing that you need to do is you need to run the Selenium Grid on the remote machine and in the local machine and provide the IP address on which you are trying to connect. That's it. The scripts will be running on the remote machine. This is one of the biggest advantages that we can say. Along with this, Selenium Grid comes with another powerful implementation called multi-threading concept. In other words, we can say parallel execution. For example, I have 10 test cases in Firefox. I can invoke 5 different Firefox browsers and run those test cases, 10 test cases. So each browser will pick one test case and run, and within 2 minutes I can complete all the test cases and I can have the results. So Selenium Grid will take care of all those things. It will it will make sure that threads are not colliding each other. That is, no thread, everything is a thread safe. Okay. Along with this, another feature is you can invoke multiple browsers at a time. Priya, you have any question? Okay. So if you want to run those 10 test cases on Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox at a time, and I want to see the functional results, that everything is going good in all the 3 different browsers. At that time, even you can invoke multiple browsers of different flavors at a time using Selenium Grid. So this is one of the powerful implementation done by Selenium team. So this is small introduction about Selenium. So any doubts over here, you can go ahead with your queries. If this is a small introduction, because I don't want to waste the time on talking about what Selenium is all about and all this, so blah blah. Better if I show you the real implementation, you would be more interested. Okay, so I am starting with the implementation. So first of all, I will open a website. So I'll start with a website and explain you how do we start with Selenium. So I am trying to take one online passport application. So I'll explain everything. First of all, I'll start with this application and then I'll go with other application as well. So the first implementation I want to start on Internet Explorer. So if you see in this web application, I have different types of elements. I have a drop down, I have a text box, I have a checkbox, I have a button. So all these things are there. So how would I identify an element? So in order to perform any action, if I want to perform any action on this particular text box or a drop down or a checkbox or a button, first of all, I need to say Selenium that this is the text box. I want to enter a text. This is the drop down. I want to select an element. This is the checkbox. I want to click on it. So any element on a given web application, if I want to identify, I treat each element as a drop down. Pardon me, I treat each element as a web element. So this surname text box, I can treat it as a web element. I can given name text box, I can treat it as a web element. I drop down, I can treat it as a list of web elements. A checkbox, I can treat it as a web element. A button, I can treat it as a web element. So in Selenium terms, in Selenium, any element you want to perform an action on a given web application can be treated as a web element. Okay, so this is how we define elements in a given web application. Treat a web element in a Selenium terms on a given web application. So in order to identify these particular elements and perform the action, Selenium comes up with following different approaches. So any element on a given web application can be identified with the following different approaches in Selenium: ID, name, class name, XPath. So these are the 4 different approaches. Along with this, CSS is there. So these are the 5 different approaches. So these are the 5 different approaches that Selenium supports to identify a given web element. Okay, so how do we do that? So before we get to learn all these things, we need to know some of the different add-ons that are required to identify these web elements. So Internet Explorer comes with an add-on called IE Developer Toolbar. FF comes with an add-on called Firebug, and Chrome comes with an add-on called Firebug Lite. So these are all the add-ons required for any given browser. We need to have these add-ons for the given browsers. So for Internet Explorer, as I'm starting with Internet Explorer, I require IE Developer Toolbar. So in this session, I'm going to talk about these three things: ID, name, class name. Because it would take pretty good time to talk about XPath and CSS. So I'll talk about ID, name, and class name, and give you a clear picture how elements are identified using ID, name, or class name. Okay. So as I was telling that IE developer toolbar is required to Internet Explorer to identify the elements using ID, name, or class name. So I have already installed in my computer, but I will show you where do you find that. So I'm trying to just open google.com. So IE developer toolbar. See, I am opening in Firefox, but please don't open in Firefox. You need to open this in Internet Explorer browser only, because when you click on install, automatically it will install onto your browser. So please do not open this in Firefox. Just open it in Google Internet Explorer and click on download. Automatically it will start downloading as well as installing on your IE browser. Okay. So if you see here, once it is installed, go to view. Under view, you'll see an option called Explorer bar. So under Explorer bar, you'll see the installed IE developer toolbar. Here you'll see the IE developer toolbar. So once you click on that, you will see this pop up at the bottom. This is what IE developer toolbar. So when you open, you may get this as a separate window like this. Okay. So what you need to do is, if you get this as a separate window, don't be confused. What you need to do is, you have a minimize button over here. Not the browser minimize button, the IE developer toolbar minimize button. When I place a cursor, you see pin. So when you click on it, it will be added as part of your Internet Explorer browser. So you should please make sure that you have in this way. It will be very convenient for you to identify the elements. So we'll start with identifying the elements. So on the IE developer toolbar, on the left side, you will see a pointer symbol. See, select element by click. So it is telling to click on it. So select that element, click on that element, and click on that pointer and place the cursor on the web application on which element you want to identify. So if I want to identify surname text box, so before I go with surname text box, I want to go with the date of birth text box. So I am clicking on date of birth text box. So immediately if you see on the IE developer toolbar, a tag has been identified, a attribute list has come, and a CSS styles have come over here. Once I selected this particular date of birth text box, automatically a tag has been identified here, and this particular attribute section has been filled, and styles have been filled. That means this particular text box is having these attributes defined by the developer. These are the styles defined by the developer, and this is the tag in the HTML that we see. When we see view source, right, we generally see the HTML tags that are defined by the developer, right? So how do I identify this particular date of birth text box? As I said, to identify an element, we can identify using an ID, name, class name, XPath, CSS. So in general, a developer defines ID or name or class name. The CSS and XPath are totally different. We'll talk about them in the next classes. ID. So if you see in the attribute section, if you see here, there are different attributes defined. If you see here, I have a class defined, name defined, max length defined, name defined, on blur, on focus, on key up, size, etc. So, what I said, ID first. So always the preference also, please make sure that preference also goes in this way. Give the first preference to ID, second preference to name, third preference to class name, fourth preference to XPath, fifth preference to CSS. So the first preference is ID. So do we have an ID attribute defined over in the attribute section? See, there is no ID defined. So what is the next preference? The next preference is name. If you see here, I have a name defined. Name is defined with a value called APPLDOB, that is application date of birth. So this name attribute we can use to identify this particular web element. So I can use this particular value to identify this particular date of birth. How would I say? How would I identify? Just see what am I doing here. So we have the value, but always this value should be unique, defined for this name attribute. So in the total web application, in this total web application from the top to bottom, for the name attribute, this value APPLDOB should be unique. The same value should not be defined anywhere else within the given web application. We should, or else Selenium will be confused to identify which element. Just to give an example, just think that district or country also has the name attribute with the value APPL date of birth. Then Selenium will be confused to identify either date of birth or country. So we should make sure that the value that we are taking is unique throughout the web page that we are trying to automate. Okay, so I am trying to capture this value and place the cursor at the starting HTML tag. I am placing the cursor at the starting HTML tag. Why? The reason is I want to check whether this particular value APPLDOB defined for the attribute, name attribute, is uniquely defined throughout the web page or not. So first of all, I'll copy this value. So once again, I am going to the starting HTML tag. So under find menu, I will have an option called find element. If it is IE8, you will see this find menu. If it is IE9 or IE10, on the right hand side, in the white space, for this menu you have a white space, right? There you will see a search box. There will you see a search box. So once you select the starting HTML tag, place the value in the search box. So I have a IE8 browser in my computer because my present application that I am working is IE8 compatible, not IE9 or IE10. So I am using IE8. So if you have IE9 or IE10, you will see a search box on the right side of the IE developer toolbar. So place the value over there. Always make sure that the cursor is at the starting HTML tag. Then I am selecting find element. So find element by ID, not ID, it's name. So I have selected the value of name. So I'll place the value over there and click on find. So immediately if you see date of birth, text box is getting blinked over there. Have you seen that? So just want to show you again. I'm placing the cursor at the starting HTML tag. So just concentrate on the date of birth text box. So just see what is happening. See, date of birth text box is getting blinked with a blue colored highlight right region. That means that particular text box is getting selected. That particular tag is getting selected. And if you see name equal to APP LOB. So this particular date of birth element is being identified with this value with the attribute name. Can we say we are done? No. If you see here, there are some more tags defined at the bottom. We should make sure that this value APPLDOB defined for name attribute is not defined anywhere else at the bottom as well. We are done till here, but we have more tags. So once again, we'll select find element, or we can click on find next. Here you can see reached the end of the document without finding an element with those properties. This says that it is unable to find any other attribute with the name attribute with the value APPLDOB. That makes us feel comfortable that this value APPLDOB value is defined uniquely for the name attribute within the total web application. Within this total web application, this value is unique. Okay. So let me take another example. Now I want to identify mobile number. If you see here, as I said, the first preference goes to ID. So first preference ID, name second, class name third, XPath fourth, and CSS fourth. If you see, for mobile number text box, if you see here, I have an ID defined. So I should go with an ID. But you may get doubt. I have a name also with the same value. Here also have the same value. Here also have the same value. But if you see, the attributes are different. So always make sure. Just I'm showing you over here. In a given web page, for example, if you are taking ID equal to some ABC. For one element we have this, and for other element if we have this is not accepted. For two web elements, the same value defined and the same attribute, this is not accepted at all. You should not take such value at all to identify that particular element. But if ID equal to if you have in this way, this is accepted. The reason is both are different attributes. If the same attribute, Selenium will be confused to perform action on which web element. But if there are two different attributes, Selenium will first check for the attribute, then only it will go for the value. So Selenium will not be confused to select which element if it is this scenario. But if it is this scenario, Selenium will be confused to identify which element. Okay. So any doubts till now? If you have any doubts, go ahead. Okay. So I am going forward. So if you see here, I have an ID defined. So I am giving the first preference to ID. I am copying the value, and again I should place the cursor at the starting HTML tag. Why? Because I need to check whether this value is uniquely defined or not. So I have placed the cursor at the starting HTML tag, and I am selecting find element. Now it is ID. So in IE9 or IE10, you will not see ID name or class name drop down. You should just place the value in the search box and click enter and check whether that particular element is getting identified or not. So I have selected ID from the drop down and place the value mobile number here and click on find. So mobile number text box is getting highlighted and it was blinking. So after that I have some more tags. Here is the tag of that particular element. So I have some more tags. So I have to click on find next. If it is pardon me. Here it was right. So after this I need to check, right? So I'll click on find next. So in IE9 or IE10 you need to click on enter, placing the cursor on in that search box. So reach the end of the text. So says this value mobile number is not found anywhere else except for this. Okay. So let's take profession. Assume I have a class defined, I have a name defined, I don't have an ID. Assume that name is not defined. Name is not at all defined here and we have only class, that is class name. So what I will do, I'll take the class value because the third preference goes to class name. I have taken the value text box dashed and I'm placing the cursor at the starting HTML tag and just see what am I doing. So I'm going to find element and place the value text box dashed over there and select class and click on find. If you see surname text box is getting highlighted, that means surname. See, if you see your attribute section, class text box dash name surname. So surname text box also has the same class name value, that is text box dash. Now Selenium will get confused. Either it should go to surname or profession. By default, Selenium gives the first preference. So first it finds surname. So automatically it will perform the action on the surname text box, not on the profession text box by any given web element on this given web application. Got it? So this is how you identify elements on Internet Explorer. Okay. So let's get into IE. In IE, I'll take I'll go with Firefox. For Firefox, I'll take a new browser called Deal for Loans. So if you see here, this is a web application. Here I want to identify. As I said, for FF we require an add-on called Firebug. So go to google.com, just type Firebug for FF. So select the first option. Depending upon your browser compatibility, depending upon your Firebug compatibility. Here you see the different versions of Firefox. Just click on add to Firefox. Automatically it will be added to your Firebug. So once this is done, once again you can see the same on view. Pardon me. Under tools, web developer toolbar, you will see Firebug. or else you can just click on F12. So once you click on F12, you'll see the Firebug integrated as part of your browser. Okay, this is Firebug. So in Firebug, I want to identify this particular element. So once I selected the full name text box, you can see here a particular tag is getting highlighted. So when I place the cursor on that tag as well, you'll see the full name text box getting highlighted. Immediately in the Firebug, the particular value has come over here. Immediately it was identifying this particular tag. See, the shadowed region over here means that is identifying this value. When I place the cursor, the mouse over on input tag, the full name text box is getting highlighted on the web page. So once again I click on next. So it is the same value is defined for the name as well. So as I said, we can ignore that. And when I click on enter, it is just navigating within the tag. So we can say that this particular full name text box is getting identified uniquely with the full name value defined for the ID attribute. So in the same way, we can identify name or class name if they are defined. So whenever a tag you are seeing, just mouse over on it, that particular element will be highlighted on the Firefox browser on the web application. For example, see, when I place on TD, if you see, full name text is identified. When I place, this is how the elements are identified. See, if I place the cursor on TR, so the total mobile text and mobile text box is getting highlighted. If I place on TD, mobile text is getting highlighted on the UI. When I place the cursor on TD, next to TD, that text box is getting highlighted. In that, if I say put on input only text box, if I place on TD, the +91 along with that everything is getting highlighted. So this is how you know that which element has been defined with the attributes. You can know all the attributes of that particular tag and which element is getting highlighted. So now the doubts time. Go ahead with your doubts. Are you able to understand the session? If you are able